The Benefits of Being an Octopus, Chapter 2. Frank starts that old man snore of his because he always goes to sleep the instant the TV goes off. In the kitchen, my mom works to scrape the burned bits of bacon off the bacon chute. Zoe, can you go check on Bryce and Aurora? Oh, look, she hasn't forgotten that I exist. Shouldn't someone go check the fuse box or something? I say. I'm sure it's out everywhere. Go check on your brother and sister. I push myself up off the couch and wind my way through the dark to the window. Pulling back Lenny's nice curtains makes it pretty clear that the rest of the trailer park is lit up, all bright and showy. It's just us, I say. Zoe Albro, I asked you to check on them. Lenny's pans are going to be impossible to get clean later if I let this stuff harden. Why are clean pans more important than a functioning fuse box? It's been a long time since my mom made any sense. At least the light from the other trailers makes it easier to walk across the rest of the living area. When I push open the door to our bedroom, it's pitch black and nothing seems to be moving. Bryce? Aurora? All I hear in response is a whimper coming from their bed. I quickly make my way through the dark, stepping on battle bots and other little plastic toy parts as I go. I hear the whimper again. Bryce? I put my hand out toward the sound and find him. He's trembling. I hear a muffled sob and feel Aurora lying next to him. She's shaking too. We... Bryce starts, but his words disappear into a hiccup. Are you guys okay? Another hiccup, more whimpering. What's wrong? I say. We can't see. Bryce finally sobs. We can't see anymore. I let out a long breath. They're not hurt. They're not sick. Is it because Frank got mad at us? I squeeze each of their hands. Oh, you sillies. It's just that the power is out. Your eyes still work fine. I crawl across the bed to get to the window and pull the curtains to the side. See? You can see the icicles coming off the neighbor's roof, right? In the glow from the neighbor's motion sensor porch light, I can make out their faces. Bryce is biting his lip, but it keeps quivering anyway. Aurora has Petunia, the sea turtle, in a death grip and is sucking on one of her flippers. Their eyes are still fixed in a state of terror. My mom and I have gone through the power going off plenty of times, but Bryce and Aurora were too little to remember. What are they supposed to think when all the lights go out, when suddenly there's no Mickey Mouse nightlight and no warning? Bryce turns toward Aurora and wraps his arm around her, his nose buried in her hair. At least we get hot dog bites. I try to swallow, but it catches in my throat. Aurora sniffs and looks at me. You gonna tell us when they're ready? Her eyes. Why do her eyes have to be so hopeful? Guys, I'm so sorry. There aren't any hot dog bites for us. Aurora lets out a wail. Bryce shuts his eyes, curls into a ball, and covers his ears with his hands. No, 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 no. I slide in next to them so I can wrap them both up tight. They both instantly burrow into me, Aurora at my shoulder and Bryce's head driving into my stomach. I'll tell you a story instead, okay? I say. I never knew I could tell stories, or Tories, as Aurora says, until one day when Bryce had woken up from one of his nightmares and couldn't get back to sleep, no matter how much I rubbed his back. I made up stories all the time before that to get myself out of trouble, like having to explain to my mom how I ended up with a new can of Easy cheese from Cumberland Farms. But bedtime stories, not so much. Thankfully, Bryce and Aurora don't exactly care or know that I'm just making it up as I go along. And telling stories mean I get to spend time in a world where the person in charge of what happens is me. Tonight, I start with 3 kids who live in a castle and don't have electricity, and I go from there. And who cares if I take some parts from the Batman movie and some parts from the documentary I once watched about Genghis Khan? The main thing is that the kids triumph over evil and that Bryce and Aurora both fall asleep. After they're both breathing heavily, I stay where I am, lying between them, staring out at those icicles. They're like teeth waiting to chomp somebody, because the problem is that real life isn't like a story. I'm not in charge, and it's usually the good guys who get chomped. But if I were an octopus, those icicles wouldn't get me. I would squish my body into a ball and jet away, fully camouflaged, of course. I slither out of Aurora's arms, find a pencil on the floor, and take the debate packet out of my pocket. I only have 1 page left, and I position myself at the window so I can use the neighbor's porch light. I go back and forth about whether it's a good thing that a baby octopus starts out in life the size of a pencil eraser, because the eraser in my pencil is pretty darn small. But I decide to include it because anything that can start out floating around defenseless in the ocean that size and then defeat the odds to grow into this powerful creature has to mean business. I fill out those remaining blanks, every single one. Just as I finish, the front door slams and I hear Lenny's voice. There's some fumbling around and a thump, like Lenny might have just smashed his toes on something. He curses. I'm so sorry, I hear my mom stammer. Well, it sure isn't my fault we're in this mess, Lenny snaps. I can totally believe it's Mom's fault. Recently, it's like she can't do anything right. I thought I filled out the form right. I thought for sure we'd get approved for assistance. My mom starts. Lenny interrupts her before she can say anything more. In there. I don't know what he's talking about until I hear their bedroom door shut, and I realize they disappeared inside it. They almost never argue about money or bills or anything, really, when I can overhear them. The neighbor's light goes out, and I'm back to being completely in the dark. In so many ways. So, it wasn't the fuse box. It was the power company who cut us off. In her old life, Mom got really good at filling out the form for financial assistance to take care of it, but she hasn't exactly been a take care of it mom for a while now. And she sure isn't the one left holding Aurora and Bryce when everything falls to pieces. I take a deep breath. An octopus might start out as defenseless, but it sure doesn't stay that way. On a wave of octopus arms, I roll across the bedroom, sliding around the battle bots, checking the distance to my mattress so I don't trip over it. I simultaneously reaching for the doorknob with one of my tentacles. I silently roll across the main room, my skin changing to match snoring Frank and his recliner as I pass by. Just around the corner in the entryway, the washing machine sits up against the wall. It's broken, except for when it pretends to work and turns all of our clothes gray. But that doesn't matter now. I scale it one sucker at a time until I'm on top of it, right next to the section of the wall that got all soft from a leak a while ago. Right where Bryce's lightsaber made a hole last summer when he and Lenny were play fighting. It's a hole that leads right into my mom and Lenny's bedroom, and my hunch was right. I can hear what they're saying from here. If I put my eye up against the hole, I can even see them. Because that's the thing about an octopus. It knows it needs to hide its soft, squishy body out of sight, but If anyone bothered to take a closer look at the hole in the reef, they'd see a big, unblinking octopus eye staring at them. Through the hole, I can see Hector sitting in the middle of the bed, waving my mom's phone flashlight around like a strobe light. Lenny has organized his undershirt drawer with an actual flashlight, completely oblivious to the disco dance party room that he's in. That's another thing about getting to live with Lenny in his trailer. It is seriously neat and tidy and organized. In our last apartment, pre-Lenny, the countertop was rotting around the edges, so you'd realize halfway through washing dishes that the water had been pooling downstream into the carpet. We basically spent our 6 months in that apartment ducking under the 5 clotheslines that crisscrossed the main room and smelling like we lived in a swamp. Lenny's trailer, on the other hand, is the opposite of a swamp. His bathroom is the most non-moldy thing you've ever seen. I told you I delivered that form last week, he's saying. You believe me, don't you? My mom, sitting near Hector on the bed, dodges to the left to avoid being whacked by her strobe light phone. Of course I believe you. Lenny starts laying his undershirts out on the bed to refold them. You can't always blame someone else. My mom bites her lip and looks away. It's just that I spent the whole day on that form. I thought I filled it out right. But how would you even know if it's right? I want to look away. She didn't used to be this much of a mess. But I forced myself to keep my octopus eye pressed against the hole, wide and unblinking. Why is she the one that all 4 of us kids are related to? Why can't it be Lenny instead, all confident and competent? No one at school would mess with me if I were like him. I know, my mom stammers, but I asked Connor to look at it first, and he thought it... My mom's voice falters. In the disco light, I can make out Lenny shaking his head. Really? Really? He stops folding and crosses the room to be right next to my mom. You really showed all the private details about our lives to Connor? Connor waits tables at the pizza pit too, and he's basically the only friend my mom has right now. He's also totally awesome, but Lenny never seems to be a big fan of his. I don't know if it's because Connor's gay or if it's because of something else. Hector drops my mom's phone and starts crying. I thought he could help, my mom says quickly. He's not someone who would judge us or anything. And he doesn't get all flustered with forms like that. And Lenny hands my mom's phone back to Hector and then wraps his arms around my mom from behind. I remember him wrapping her up like this when we first got together, and how she would close her eyes and lean her head against his shoulder like there was nowhere else to be in the world. We can take care of our own business ourselves, Lenny says. You've got me taking care of you now. My mom has her eyes squeezed shut. But it's not like before, when she'd be looking all calm. It's more like how Bryce looked when he accidentally crashed into Lenny's tower of alphabetized DVDs, and he closed his eyes tight as if that'd make the mess he made go away. I scoot down off the washing machine. I can't stand to see my mom's face looking like that. If she could do stuff right the first time around, it wouldn't be like this.